All right, so welcoming all of you back. Hope you just kept your eyes peeled while watching the AV out there. For now, it's time for us to focus on CX 2.0. It's going to be a discussion around accelerating the digital experience.
CX 1.0 to CX 2.0.
Sorry, Jacqueline, your voice went a bit. Was that addressed to me? I thought it was. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, it just went off a bit in between. Thanks, Jacqueline. Hi to my fellow panelists and the audience here today. It's an interesting topic. I know our context is currently reset with the pandemic. So all correlations to a 2.0 probably is a post-pandemic scenario. I have a little different take on that. I think the 1.0 or 2.0 is a transitionary phase that to many organizations, maybe to Sharatee, it happened a year back, that they redefined for banks, for insurance companies. E-commerce may have had it 2 years back. Real estate may have it a year later, for an example, right? I mean, it's just a evolution stage for an organization. What the pandemic has done is probably accelerated that. So where we made our plans over a 12, 24-month period, post-March 2020, the environment or circumstances have forced us to take decisions for the immediate, which may have been earlier postponed to a later stage. A couple of examples. In a retail environment or real estate, which again is a lot of touch, feel, face-to-face, you suddenly, it's like you've lost your feet because you do not any longer have face-to-face at a branch operations for a bank, for example. And suddenly you're thrown into the unknown where you have to do this on any other medium. So voila, Zoom, MS Teams, and the likes that have suddenly, become the de facto mode of communication. I think that to a large extent has led to, I won't call it a disconnected service mindset, but the adjustment to be able to, like we are doing right now, I think we are in that 2.0 mode right now.
Yes, in
a disconnected environment, how do you make the best use of what's available? And I think technology is probably the largest enabler that has, brought everybody together. I think you and I were talking, Jacqueline, yesterday, and I'll give an example of a conference like this. You and I have spoken at multiple conferences, and we've, of course, spent time together at these conferences, which was in a hotel, in a banquet hall, and you had breakout sessions, but it was all captive in-house. Today's conferences, and I've been doing them since March, the advantages, the panelists could be sitting in Greece, in Tokyo, in France. It doesn't matter. Today, it's a global perspective that all of us can share, imbibe in. The audience can be anywhere. The audience is interactive because they can participate in it online. And all this can get recorded. To me, the biggest bane in all the previous conferences was they couldn't get recorded. Today, all this is recorded. It can be used, leveraged, learning. And it's taking a very small example. I know it's early days in our discussion. But I think the 2.0 really has brought a dynamic change to time. Time as a factor in what we do. Today, time is at a premium because the environment is such. Second is leveraging technology. And I think that's the second big boon that this 2.0 has brought about, where I was just in my mind running some rough numbers. If you ask me in a typical environment in a 1.0, in a retail or say real estate environment, it would have been a 90 offline and a 10 online %. I'm taking a percentage. I think 2.0 has probably taken that to a 20 offline, or not even 20 offline, maybe a 10 offline, if at all possible, and a 80 to 90 online.
Sure.
When the markets open out, my sense is it will stabilize to a 60 to 70 online and a 30 to 40 offline. And I think that's the opportunity, really. It's not really that, wow, people won't go out. I think people have realized they can sit at home and just about do everything, as we have learned ourselves. So just my take at an early stage, Jacqueline.
Thanks so much, Ajay. That was really, I think, two big takeaways. The world is shrinking, and data analytics and smarter information flow is really the key which is coming out of these trends. Sharatee, can I just move to you? I mean, you've spent a lot of time in the BFSI industry. I think you've been one of the lucky ones to really see the transition, really, if I can say that, from how we would traditionally, handle customers vis-a-vis what we do today. I mean, the financial industry has been in the forefront really of digital transformation. But in spite of that, when I chatted with you, you seem to say that, simple and easy really is more important than really having a deal and discount mentality. Would you like to explain and elaborate this concept a little more?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jackie. Uh, if you can see the world around us, everything is revolving around cashbacks and trying to delight our customers. The basic premise of any freebie that you throw at a customer is revolves around the premise that if this customer is delightful, you will have loyalty and you will have repeat purchase. Let's go back to the first question you asked, Ajay, which is 1.2 and 2.2. The matrices of 1.0 were essentially CSAT. Most organizations we know used to ask the customer on a 5-point scale of how satisfied were you. Then, it assumed that if you were very satisfied, then the more satisfied you were, the more loyal it would be. Then I think notably Fred Ruckeld came up and he found very little correlation between the satisfaction and the loyalty, and then he brought in the 11-point NPS. If I look at CX 2.0, this is the time for completely revisiting the matrices that by which we measure how well are we doing on CX. And a new metrics that I found and that we've started using in Kotak is called the customer effort score. It is because BFSI is a high effort from a customer perspective kind of product, notably mortgage loans and others. This basically assigns ratings from 1 to 5, with 5 representing very high effort as defined by the customer. And by this, we find out the repeat purchase and the customer's intention to keep doing business with my bank. And if it is high effort, however delightful and freebies I have given with it, the customer will not come back and repeat that transaction with me. They will not increase the amount they spend with us, or they will not spend positive. In fact, we've also found the other correlation. There might be negative word of mouth in that.
Absolutely.
I feel 2.2 should bring about it different measures by which we measure whether our customers are actually happy, intend to do repeat purchases, and thus vote with their wallets with us.
Absolutely. So very well said, Sharatee. Very, very insightful. I think the whole idea which is coming through very strongly is don't buy the customer's loyalty, create meaningful experiences and reduce the effort. Okay. And I think this entire thing of correlative analysis, which people forget because they're so glamorized with this digital change and adoption that they just forget that the simplicity of correlating data and looking at it to tell you a story and give you insights is really something that we sometimes miss. Very well said. Thank you so much. I need to now move to Sudipta. So Sudipta is actually on the other side of really enabling large organizations to really make that huge step towards the customer. So at Ninth Dimension, he's really in charge of data centers, and with COVID, I'm sure the entire effect was how to make all of us took this little hiatus post the lockdown, but I think you guys must have been really, really busy, Sudipta. So can you tell us how you went from strength to really enable customers and enable clients to really enable their customers to continue to have services?
Sure. So the first few weeks of lockdown were really tough. There was absolutely no predictability in terms of where the next dollar of business is going to come from. And I think that was the case with most businesses, irrespective of the vertical they are in. And, for our customers alike. So we had to take a step back. We had to first, kind of identify the problem statement and see how we are going to address that. So First thing, of course, we try to put down our operational cost, keep them at the bare minimum. But for a technology company, consulting company like us, it's our people are our strength. They are our IP, right? The first thing that we had to do was to keep them motivated to an extent that whatever were the commitments that we had done to our set of people, both internal and external, in terms of financial deliverables, in terms of operational deliverables, we had to make sure that they were done on time without any glitch whatsoever. And then, building that confidence with the team, right? To make sure that everybody is still happy, still motivated, and giving more than the 100%. We made sure we did a few things more relevant in terms of giving them bonuses, keeping them more active and alive, introducing them to newer technologies which would be asked for by our customers, and make sure that the team delivers, right? And lastly, I would like to say that from a technology perspective, each and every customer always wanted to have the work from home solutions in whatever shape and form it could be implemented, right? But seldom we have seen that people not having a 360-degree view of what it takes to actually implement these solutions at the ground. What are the components that go in from a data security perspective into the data center? And of course, keeping in mind the various privacy laws that most of our customers have to adhere to, most of the other data security compliances that they have to adhere to. So we have to bring up our technical competence, around all those areas, along with our technology partners like Dell, Hitachi Vantara, and Commvault, who are already, kind of part of this event. And make sure that they are delivered within the time frame acceptable by the customers.
You are on mute, Jacqueline.
The nugget that I'm taking forward, really, thank you, is that you're looking at employee engagement. You're looking at the people who are enablers of technology, and just not technology, in one side of the whole picture. The other part is that you mentioned about having a 360-degree view. And that really is so important for managers today, because sometimes we look at customer experience only perhaps from a revenue generation or a conversion of things, rather than looking at it from a holistic perspective. So I think the whole idea where you mentioned that competency to develop technology competency to meet the fact that your customer really needs to sometimes be advised as to how to look at things, not just from what solution he's searching, but also the parallel stuff of data security and privacy. So lovely insights there. Thank you so much. Deepak, may I move to you just now? So you have been with ftcash when you started off in 2015, one of the early movers in the digital space, much before it became fashionable for payments and finance to really move so aggressively towards digital payments, much before, game changers like demonetization and COVID in its own way also pushed a whole cohort of people towards embracing virtual payments and the UPI payments methods. So you spoke about insights really, which drove you to really make this merchants to really co-create the success for you. So could you tell us a little more about that, please?
Sure, Jacqueline. So I think, in our space, like, Sharatee will agree, we have a regulator, so there is so much disruption that you can do, and a lot which, you have to move towards the physical side of it. So as an industry, we'd all love to move to a platform where, loans can be sanctioned digitally and, dispersed digitally, etc. But given the regulation, a certain amount of that process has to move from, a digital to a physical format where the agreements are getting signed, etc., and then move back to a digital, because effectively the banks, the fintechs will then scan those documents, dispersals will happen digitally, etc. So I think keeping the regulation aside, one of the other challenges that we faced in the lending space was that the merchant segments that we were dealing with, and these are your average neighborhood merchants, your mom and pop shops who are running your local neighborhood kirana stores, your chemists, who are unbranded, non-branded, who you see on a day in, day out basis have been around, right? I mean, they're a very assisted economy as such, So typically, what our sales would hear is that, hey, why don't you come down? I mean, in India, it's a lot of touch and feel, as Ajay will say, even in the real estate space, which is now changing because of COVID. So, COVID, in that sense, has been a watershed moment for technology because it has just opened everybody's mind. It's changed horizons. It's made the consumer a lot more adaptable and amenable to change. Where processes which we had difficulties doing digitally. So, for example, when COVID happened in March, right? I mean, initially it was a knee-jerk reaction. All business kind of came to a halt, and everybody said, okay, let's evaluate because there's lockdown across the entire country, etc. I think for the month of April we did no lending, and then starting from May we said that okay, we're going to start lending, and then the questions came around. Okay, how do you do certain processes which until now, even though not regulatory, but from a credit perspective, from a risk perspective, you did physically. I mean, so you had a credit person go and meet the end consumer, and that experience was entirely, physical in nature. And that's when we realized that, it has to be a mix of both physical as well as digital. There are certain processes which we can't digitize, and then there are certain processes which we digitize. So the entire process of a discussion between a credit person and the individual who was taking a loan or borrowing from us was then digitized again using a platform like ours today, which we're currently using for this conference over a video call. Processes in terms of, credit checks, which were earlier done by people, using, neighborhood checks, etc., right? Were given to outsource agencies. We use concepts of, verifying agencies sending across, parcels to two different places to make sure that the person had access to both those locations, which is the office and the home. So I think what's going to happen is that, this is going to just allow us to look at every process in a very different way and say, given the constraints that we have, how do we do it? Will some of these processes go back to status quo once COVID goes back? I think yes, like Ajay said, you will see some of it moving back towards either 30-40 or 50-50. But I think what it has done is it has brought the entire organization a lot closer. It has changed a lot of industries, in its wake. I think travel is one industry which is going to see a significant amount of change because suddenly everybody in sales that I talk to has realized that you don't need to be on the field 20 days in a month and you can still manage to get the work done. So I think we have the interesting times ahead of us.
Yeah. So yes, the art of the possible. So actually interesting, and I'm going to come to you in our next round and talk a lot about what you really have seeded now in my mind is the phygital aspect of doing business and how it will really become a game changer, in the world that we're going to be seeing in 2021. Prasun, I'm back to you now. So as a proud career marketer, you've been really, when I chatted with you, I found that you were very, very passionate about this whole thing of creation and innovation. And that really drives a lot of the initiatives. So considering that you're looking at customer insights as the heart of whatever drives you and your organization, could you give us some examples as to how you were forced to change with COVID, and therefore you've made these absolute initiatives which are working well today, and you think that will sustain you in the months to come?
Sure. See, one of the last speakers, you face a situation where everything that you want to speak has already been spoken, but I would try to add some value there. See, the point is digital was already part of lots of businesses and processes before COVID as well. And over a period of time, a lot of transition had already happened as far as consumer experiences are concerned. Even in real estate, I mean, Ajay sees real estate from the other side of the table. He sees real estate as an aggregator from the other side of the table. And, we know that close to about 75% of consumers who are looking at buying, selling any property, even before COVID, were going online at least once in their journey, right? So the adoption of digital for search and discovery, the adoption of digital for lots of research work and arriving at a meaningful and informative decision was already there, right? The question was a lot of processes which were very physical in nature, could they go digital? We always knew in theory that they could go digital. I mean, there were always solutions which were available. There were always, there were practices, also use cases also from other markets that you could see. And yes, COVID has made a lot of people adapt to this new normal. But the point remains that I have not really seen, just to play a devil's advocate, apart from use of video calling facility as a platform, any other kind of technology being really adopted by anyone to really enhance an experience of a consumer or really to create new value propositions. I may be wrong, but yet I have not come across any such thing. Even education as an industry, which has really pivoted almost online completely to this pandemic, is largely this platform just kind of disseminate lectures and classes.
Yes, one to many dissemination of information, right?
I personally think the real change using digital as technology in businesses is yet to happen, and I don't think companies or people have adapted it yet. Okay, so I agree with Ajay. Maybe it will not be a completely digital world. Maybe it will be largely digital world with largely physical part, continuing or coming back, right? But having said that, the point that you raised about innovation, very quickly, yes, few things did happen, right? So, in real estate, for example, there was one process which was very physical in nature that went digital, and that was a process of site visits, right? And that was an essential step of anyone who wanted to invest in property to really go for a site visit, look for a sample property built there yourself, and and get a good touch and feel of the place that you want to invest in. Because of pandemic, that really moved online, and developers, alongside a lot of solutions that were available, made available by property platforms like us, were adopted big time. By consumers and ecosystem partners alike, right? So that process, which was considered to be essential physical, process as part of the entire experience, went digital, and it was forced to be. Well, whether that will come back to a physical sense, time will tell us. But yes, so it's possible to move everything digital, including transactions in real estate, which sounds very utopian and much years away. How would one pay 1 crore of rupees online? But because it's possible in theory, I think with right value propositions and right mindset, could as possible as well practically. So yes.
Very, very interesting view, and especially the point of view you had is like, how do you look at your customer need? That's really, so if your customer is going in a particular direction, you obviously follow or try and sort of preempt him and give them what they want. And the other part is the seeding of behavior, as you rightly said, is that yes, you had data to say that some of them had adopted digital irrespective of whether there was COVID or not. And can you take that seed and sort of drive that as an opportunity in a more stronger way? And I think I want to stay on you, and you were rightly said as my customer that you were last on the on the panel. So I'm going to be taking your feedback now and staying a little more on you. So tell me something about this initiative which you had taken about the Magicbricks Experience Center. I mean, that I think use technology. So I take your point that adoption cannot be pushed down people's throat. People have to be ready for it. But I think this is something that you did and has a fair amount of success.
Yes, so and this was done in pre-COVID era. So the point is, we looked at the steps that a consumer had to go through, the entire journey of the consumer. We mapped that, and we saw that there were steps or processes where probably one could add value using technology. And we used virtual reality and AR and a couple of other technology elements, and we put that as a solution. It was exactly the point that I was making about site visits. The point was that we figured out a lot of consumers were talking to us and telling us that, listen, this entire process of shortlisting, a project when you are looking for investment and which one is the best investment for you to go for, becomes a little tedious, and it's time taking, it's time consuming. Is there a solution that can be found using technology where it could just be readily available for us to take a quicker decision, for example, and more informed decision? So we decided to use technology. We set up these experience centers across malls and airports, airport lounges, etc., where a consumer in his or her free time could just sit down and browse through a whole lot of projects that were pre-fed there, or the ones that they were looking for to invest in, and go through all the details, see them in 360-degree view using VR, check all the details, experience them, and feel them using AR, and so on and so forth. And therefore, we were trying to bring them closer to the down funnel metrics, which was make them move towards transaction and early closure of their decision journey. And this was adapted really well. And consumers did find it very, very innovative and interesting thing to do. They said, as it is, I was going to kind of probably spend 1 hour browsing through or looking for something to do. And this was very meaningful initiative. And that did also help our developer partners engage with consumers in a new environment. Otherwise, a developer has to wait for footfalls to happen to the site to really engage, and that universe is really small. Here, you were all of a sudden expanding the universe using technology and reaching out.
And what could be actually there is that, if you get some feedback on that, you can actually innovate and have people then, improve upon whatever engagement they're doing. So excellent, yes. Lovely. So thanks so very much. I think importantly that, we have an example of how technology really has worked, and it didn't just need always a COVID to really push us into that direction. Coming back to Sudipta, just, because your data center as a kind of service is one of the key things which really enable large organizations really help to support their customers. So could you give us some examples of where the ninth dimension has really walked that extra mile, overcame challenges of COVID, and really, gave excellent support to their customers during this period of time? And this can really be an inspiration to our audience, really, to look at how obstacles can really open different avenues for solutions.
Well, I'll take the cue from Prasun's conversation, right? So Prasun definitely, saw the customer need and wanted to develop this platform through which they can give a delightful customer experience. Now, obviously, there is also in that decision-making process from their organization perspective is to what is the amount of money I invest in putting that, technology upfront, right? Because obviously these technologies do not come for cheap, right? Now, being a technology consulting partner like us, we were really pushed back, to the wall, right? Because all of you, as consumers of technology, and so as many of our enterprise-grade customers, they stopped spending, they stopped buying. Most of them would defer their decisions to, quite a few subsequent quarters. So what did we do? We brought out as a service offerings, okay, both for on-premise as well as on public cloud. One particular example that I would like to share with everyone is we have a cost optimization tool on public cloud where the customer need not pay anything upfront. Okay, and it's a challenge that we are posing to our customers, saying that from what you save as your monthly bills on cloud, you pay us only a fraction of it. Okay, so such kind of innovative pricing models on the same technology, right, is something that we had to bring onto the table to entice our existing as well as our new customers, right? And apart from that, there were many customers who definitely had the technology need to develop and implement certain solutions and platforms. So we needed to see how to, optimize their acquisition costs of those technologies, how to minimize their operational costs of those technologies. So we went into the open source world. Now, as many of technologists out there would know, that open source has its own hurdles of adaptation, right? Even though from a cost perspective, you have no license cost upfront, you have no maintenance cost for it, but you will have challenges of skill sets. You will have people inhibiting on adopting it based on security concerns. so on and so forth. So that is where, again, a consulting organization like us, we had to develop our skill sets on open source technologies, which have the same enterprise class features that you would get from a proprietary vendor, and but at the same time give the confidence to our customers, saying that we are there, we can take this journey with you right from the ideation stage all the way till deployment, and managing it for you over a period of time. And once you're comfortable, only then we look at the financial benefits that come out of it from an ROI and a TCO perspective. These are a few things that we did to help our customers, go through this journey where the spending was really a big challenge, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So important takeaways. I think we want to bring in the returns element to it. ROI, technology has to give its ROI. We are not here. There are no free lunches. We don't run NGOs. In fact, NGOs are also quite cost as a bottom line centric now. And the other thing is really the OPEXization of large elements of cost. So very well said, Sudipta. Thank you so much. Sharatee and Ajay, I need to get a question each to you, and I have about maybe 6 minutes, so I need your help here, but I need your thoughts here into this conversation. Sharatee, first to you. So you mentioned about how anticipatory and proactiveness really will get a shot in sort of executing customer experience. Would you want to throw a little bit of light on that, Sharatee?
So, downstreaming is what we call, all of us in our businesses run contact centers, right? And we know that we track contact center matrices on average handling time, the first call resolution as a metric, and some amount of sales. What we forget to see there is the downstreaming, which means that this customer, I wrapped up the call in the handling time, so a tick mark. But this customer within again called me back. Let's take a banking example. A customer who calls me for net banking, a downstreaming query, which comes eventually is maybe she got stuck with beneficiary activation, or there was a differential limit between, let's say, IMPS and NEFT, and the customer did not know that. So when the customer calls me the first time for net banking activation, a downstreaming question could be, have you ever done a funds transfer through net banking? If the customer says, yes, I'm quite comfortable, I just forgot the password, wonderful, move on. It's a low AHT, complete correct resolution. If not, spend that extra few seconds and say, would you want a little help on Benny activation? Because what you're doing is, yes, you are going above AHT on this call, but you are stopping 2 further calls of 5 minutes. And again, customer effort of inputting that call, plus the fact that she went to do a transaction. Finally, no customer wakes up in the morning thinking, I want to do this payment. Customer wakes up in the morning thinking, I want to buy the iPhone, or I need to buy some groceries, or I need to make a payment for my child's school fees. And that transaction hasn't happened because the interface has not worked for the customer. So downstreaming and going beyond the FCR and the immediate matrices are also very critical. You are being proactive, and the customer is gonna thank you for it with her wallet.
Absolutely. Totally second that. Totally second that. Now I move on to you, Ajay. So the final question for you is, what initiatives that either you have personally driven or you've observed others within the fraternity, the CX fraternity, really have put their weight behind, so sort of cope with of course, the pandemic-induced activities, but also which you, in your crystal gazing, if I can ask you to do, you're sure is something that we will continue to do because it is a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the customer.
Sure, thanks. I quite liked Sharatee's point on what we quite some time back when I was handling the call center side of it was, clear focus on just a metric and not really focus on repeatability of the queries, because to any outsourced call center, the metric was AHT and AHT and AHT, and all the SLAs were driven by that. So very interesting. I have 2 points on that, and I think Prasun did touch upon that briefly. I think, and the reason I'm specifying technology is the core to what we are doing today. I think that is a definitive edge for everything that we touch today. And I'll give an example from real estate itself. And I think one of the examples Prasun spoke about was a site visit. I do understand, like a lady who buys a sari, she would definitely not try the sari on virtually. She would definitely want to try it on physically, right? Site visit is quite similar to that. When you're putting 80% of your lifetime investment into a product, you definitely will still go for a site visit. The environment today may have challenged you from not being able to do that. But there's very interesting technology coming along. Let me do it at the front ending as opposed to the tail end at the time of somebody buying the product or going and visiting the product. Let's look at an example of say Sharatee wanting to buy a house. Sharatee is based in Bombay. Sorry, I'm just taking an example, Sharatee. I don't mean you're in Bombay. Sharatee is in Bombay. Her parents are in say Bangalore, and she's got her sister in Sweden. Now, Sharatee is making a decision to buy a 2 million product, and she comes to L&T to buy that product. Now, Sharatee may be present here, so she does come to visit the place. But if in the earlier environment, Sharatee would make that decision for want of anything available that her family could engage or be involved in the buying decision. But with technologies like augmented reality and MR, which is available today, Sharatee could actually be sitting in our office, virtually going through it, and we have her entire family sitting dispersed across the world, actually going through the same experience that Sharatee who's at the site. Now, in one go, you've suddenly brought the entire family into a buying decision. I'm just taking one microcosm as an example.
Absolutely.
And now Sharatee's decision at the end of 10 minutes or whatever, half an hour, 45 minutes, is she doesn't have to go back and ask anybody. Everybody says, beta, very good, or, mom, damn good, in either form. And the decision is the whole family has taken that decision. Technology has made that possible. So I think the excitement really is what technology can do. And to me, that take HR today. A colleague of mine joined a company.
Ajay, we'll just have just a minute left. I mean,
okay. I'll just take the next 30 seconds, Jacqueline. So let's take somebody who joined joined the new organization. Surprise, surprise! The guy didn't have to go to report to the office in Pune. He just logged in Bangalore. Everything was enabled for him, and he started working at home in Pune, and he's ready to go. Wow! I think that's to me, technology has no limit or it's boundaryless to what can be achieved. That was just my point in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ajay, Deepak, Sudipta, Sharatee and Prasun. Awesome. I think brilliant observations, very good examples. I'm sure the audience are going to relate to all of this. And decidedly, I think these initiatives will really, it confirms that, in the way forward also it will have much use for all of us, especially when we're trying to marry the physical and digital worlds. And thanks to ETH for this excellent topic. It was awesome and very, very pleasurable to have a very well spent afternoon with all of you guys. Thank you very much. I'm signing off from now. Thanks.